I believe that our moral, ethical, and our religious responsibility is to defend the system where patients do come first, not personal ideology. This bill compromises the integrity, safety, and compassion that South Dakotans deserve.
Welcome back to Searchlight Report, a podcast from South Dakota Searchlight. I'm Megan O'Brien, and our podcast brings you up to date on policy and politics in the Mount Rushmore state. In this week's episode, we're looking at some of the bills that have made it to the governor's desk during the legislative session, a federal judge's decision on an abortion rights campaign, and new state revenue numbers that bring better news for schools, state employees, and Medicaid providers. But first, you just heard from Representative Taylor Rayfelt, a Sioux Falls Republican. She cast one of the votes against a bill that would have allowed healthcare providers to refuse to perform services that violate their conscience. Representative Leslie Heineman, a Republican from Flandreau, introduced the bill.
There's a real risk of losing thousands of religious healthcare professionals because some people considered their ethical practices to be unacceptable. This bill protects diversity of belief within the medical profession and benefits patients by protecting the supply of physicians and other medical providers within the healthcare system. No one should be forced to choose between their faith and their profession. That's wrong. That is absolutely wrong.
But some representatives, like Republican Nick Fosness of Britain, worried about how broadly the bill reached. Fosness is also CEO of the Avera Marshall County Healthcare Center.
Objections morally or ethically can present around every corner in multiple departments and in multiple ways. I asked this body, what is that compromise? What is that? How does an employer who's staffing an EMS crew in rural South Dakota define who do we put on the floor on the ambulance crew tonight, and what may they or may they not have a compromise with a patient transfer, not emergent, but a simple patient transfer? There's unintended consequences from legislation that feels more like one more regulation to our healthcare systems.
South Dakota's House shut down the bill with 25 votes for and 41 against it. The legislative session started in January and continues until mid-March at the Capitol in Pierre. Bills that earn approval from both chambers of the legislature have one final stop, the governor's desk. A bill that deregulates gun silencers, a pair that could improve emergency medical staffing, and one to authorize the spending of federal rural health funds are just a few of the more than 20 that Governor Larry Roden has approved. He's vetoed one bill so far. The rejected bill would effectively ban lab-grown meat from being sold in the state. More specifically, it would list those products as adulterated, aligning them with other foods that are unsafe for consumption. The legislation passed through the House and Senate despite lawmakers who were concerned about limiting the free market and about the potential of a lawsuit, like ones against similar laws in Texas and Florida. Roden has offered a compromise. He's asked the legislature to support a 5-year moratorium on the product, which he says will allow the state to study and better understand the products.
The messages I've got, every one of them have been positive, and especially from, which is extremely encouraging to me because most of them are from ag producers, and when they the comments I've seen from them and the input is, you got this one right. None of us like the idea of cell-cultured protein, but we understand the precedent that we set and how dangerous a precedent it is if that was allowed to stand, that it's okay for states to just ban products because they don't like them.
Assistant Senate Majority Leader Carl Perry, a Republican from Aberdeen, says he would not support that compromise.
I like to call it no lab-grown protein. I wouldn't be an advocate for the compromise, I guess. We had 4 different bills on lab-grown meat, and this is the one that was run. And then it goes to the governor, and the governor can veto anything that gets to him. We'd have to have 24 votes, so there's some battles ahead, but we're prepared for them, and this is how the system is set.
But House Minority Whip Kaden Whitman, a Sioux Falls Democrat, says she's happy with the veto.
The fear-mongering that comes with that, of banning a product that is not for sale literally anywhere. Just, it was interesting to me to have that conversation. And then to tie it to, if you vote in favor of this, you support our ranchers and our cattle producers. And if you don't support them. That felt really disingenuous to me because we had producers and ranchers that voted no on that bill.
Rodin's 5-year moratorium would require an amendment to an already existing bill carried by Republican Senator Michaela Voida of Bone Steel.
And while I can't say that I 100% agree with his decision to veto, we do appreciate his willingness to sit down and talk through everything with us as legislators. The 5-year moratorium will give us a little bit more time to check out some long-term studies of this stuff, see how these other cases that are currently in litigation are going to shake out. And, the legislature meets every year. So I guess if we have 5 years as a starting point, it can always change in a year or two. So I think it's better than nothing.
Lawmakers could also decide to override the governor's veto, but that would take a 2/3 vote in each chamber, and the bill only passed in the Senate by 1 vote. I'll be back with more news after this break.
Hi, it's Clayton Henkel, Deputy Editor at NC Newsline. At State's Newsroom, we believe journalism should be fair, fearless, and free. With reporters working on the ground in all 50 states and Washington, D.C., we provide nonpartisan coverage of the state issues that matter most to you. You can subscribe to our work by going to statesnewsroom.com/subscribe.
Over recent months, dueling lawsuits have played out in a dispute over an abortion rights advertising campaign that swept through the state. A federal judge decided earlier this week that she didn't have jurisdiction to stop a state suit against the nonprofit that's running the ads. Back in December, the group Mayday Health began posting ads at gas stations that asked viewers pregnant, don't want to be, and provided a link to more information. South Dakota Republican Attorney General Marty Jackley sent the group a cease and desist. He said the ads misled people to believe it's legal to bring abortion pills into the state. The group, Mayday Health, said it's exercising its right to free speech. Then, Jackley asked a state judge to stop the advertisements. In January, Mayday filed a federal lawsuit to stop Jackley from taking legal action against them. But a federal judge declined to intervene. She said during an oral ruling via teleconference that, quote, I trust that the South Dakota court will get it right, unquote. The drugs mifepristone and misoprostol are commonly used in medication abortions. Jackley said in a press conference this week that state law makes it illegal to mail, quote, drugs of this nature into the state.
Here in South Dakota, our laws will be followed, that we will take action when somebody is deceptive regarding those laws or solicits activity that would be contrary to those laws. With that, I recognize that the company will likely raise First Amendment issues. And again, my position is that the First Amendment is important, but it is an unprotected speech when you're being deceptive about it, when you're seeking an illegal activity. That's considered an unprotected speech that isn't a violation of the First Amendment.
Mayday's executive director says they look forward to bringing the fight to South Dakota. The state's case against Mayday Health will have its first hearing soon at the Hughes County Courthouse in Pierre. South Dakota has one of the most restrictive abortion bans in the country. The only exception is when the mother's life is threatened by a pregnancy. In his budget address to legislators this past December, Governor Larry Rodin recommended no funding increase for the state's big three: education, state employees, and Medicaid providers. But this week, a joint budget committee adopted a $2.5 billion general fund revenue projection for the upcoming fiscal year. That's $30 million more than earlier estimates, thanks to higher-than-expected sales tax revenue. Lawmakers say they'd like to see it be used to fund increases to the big three. A 1% increase in funding for all three would cost $24.8 million. That's the option Rodin's advocating for.
Here's what I'd like about the across-the-board increases for the big three. It doesn't pick winners and losers, and it treats the most important aspects of state government equally. It's about taking care of the people. It's about supporting our teachers and schools so that our students have the best opportunity for their future. It's about keeping South Dakota healthcare strong. and it's about supporting the state employees who help keep South Dakota strong, safe, and free.
The extra money should be used to help South Dakotans, according to Aaron Healy, Democratic House Minority Leader from Sioux Falls.
It's a real chance to put people first. We can invest in public schools, protect access to health care, support working families, especially those working families who are state employees. And I think it's important because our budget really needs to reflect our values and our priorities.
Republican Senate Majority Leader Jim Melhoff of Pierre says some of the conversations about the money are pointing to the big three.
Well, it could be used for anything under the sun if you have the votes for it. But I think the pulse that I'm picking up, although it's not official because I don't have it on paper, is that there is an appetite to provide more funding for education, more funding for state employees and our community service providers. So I think that's going to be probably the top thing that we discuss.
There are a handful of anti-abortion bills moving through the legislature. One of those is from Sioux Falls Republican Representative Tony Kaiser, who wants schools to teach students about prenatal development. His bill would require schools to show an ultrasound video depicting the development of the brain, heart, and other major organs. They'd also have to show another ultrasound video or animation that, quote, shows the progress of prenatal human development from fertilization through birth, unquote. Kaiser provided lawmakers with an example of a video that could be used.
We showed it in committee. It's very powerful, so I want everybody to actually have a chance to see the video. Again, just really seeing the need for this kind of education. So hope you had a chance to look at the video. It kind of hints around the miracle of life and how important it is that we actually educate our youth on life.
Opponents worry about the video's medical inaccuracies. Democratic House Minority Leader Aaron Healy is one of 10 representatives who voted against the bill.
While the video may seem educational at first glance, there are a lot of medically inaccurate issues in this. So for example, this video, it dates fetal development from fertilization, but anyone who's been pregnant, and I think I'm one of the most recent ones here on this floor, there's a few others, I think they're gone today. When you go into your first appointment, they actually base it off of the first day of your last menstrual period. That is standard practice, not the date of fertilization. This makes development appear like it's more advanced than it actually is.
The bill passed in the House with 52 votes of support. Its next stop is a Senate committee.
This is Seth Tupper, editor of South Dakota Searchlight. We launched Searchlight in 2022. We shine a light on the most pressing issues in the Mount Rushmore state, focusing on state policy and politics. Our reach goes from East River to West River, with journalists in Sioux Falls, Pierre, and Rapid City. You can subscribe to our work by going to southdakotasearchlight.com/subscribe.
Employers could soon be required to go through another step to verify an employee's eligibility to work in the U.S. after the South Dakota House approved a new piece of legislation. Employees need to fill out an I-9, an employment verification form that employers have to file for all new employees, including U.S. citizens. The bill would require employers to file I-9 information with E-Verify, a free federal government website. It compares records from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and U.S. Social Security Administration to an employee's I-9. South Dakota's Attorney General could also investigate employers and fine them up to $2,000 for each time they fail to use the system. Republican Representative Josephine Garcia from Watertown brought the bill to the House.
However, as long as undocumented illegal workers can easily find employment, there will continue to be a job shortage in South Dakota for our citizens. Removing the job magnet that draws illegal workers to our state would reduce illegal population that law enforcement officers must track down, making their work safer and more effective. This common sense measure would protect American workers, support federal enforcement, and keep our communities safer.
Some lawmakers showed concern for the additional administrative work that would fall onto employers, like Representative Eric Muckey, a Sioux Falls Democrat.
You know, I understand the idea of wanting to keep our community safe. I don't think anybody here disputes that. What I do dispute in this case is that this bill doesn't actually address safety. If anything, it makes it harder for employers to work, because when I think about this, if I'm implementing E-Verify and I have somebody complaining about my staff that have no merit whatsoever, it's not to say that there isn't merit to the process that the prime sponsor brought here, but I'm not interested in somebody digging into my business and asking questions about my employees that are completely unmerited and completely wrong, and having to then turn around and say, how do I defend my employees day in and day out, even if they're, again, citizens, residents. I just have a problem with this in terms of its implementation. It has nothing to do with safety or immigration, frankly. It's just about how do we actually work with our small businesses for something that works well.
The bill passed on a 49-13 vote. Finally, Democrats have a new candidate for governor. Dan Allers, executive director of the state's Democratic Party and a former legislator, announced his candidacy this week.
To be a leader means being a servant. It means listening to people's concerns and needs, because that's how you know whether the policies that you implement are working or they're not. For too long, too many of our elected officials have ignored the voices of the people they represent.
The last time a Democrat won the race for governor in South Dakota was in 1974.
There's a need for someone who can bring people together, that knows how to collaborate, that knows how to work across party lines. I'm excited about an opportunity to change the narrative, to change the dialogue that happens in politics. We've become so heavily partisan that it doesn't seem like we ever get anything meaningful done or accomplished.
Allers isn't the only one seeking the Democratic nomination. 20-year-old Robert Arnold is a student at Dakota State University. He announced his campaign last year. The candidates for the Republican nomination for governor are Aberdeen businessman Toby Doden, United States Representative Dusty Johnson, Governor Larry Roden, and South Dakota Speaker of the House John Hanson. There are also at least 2 independents who might run. Allison Renville is a community activist and member of the Native American tribe known as the Sisseton Wahpeton Oyate, who announced her run in October. And Anthony Sitter, an independent from Aberdeen, has formed an Anthony Sitter for Governor Campaign Finance Committee. The primary election is June 2nd. That's all we have for this week on Searchlight Report. The podcast is based on reporting by South Dakota Searchlight's staff, editor Seth Tupper, senior reporter John Holt, and reporters Joshua Heyer, Mackenzie Huber, and me. I write the scripts and produce the audio, with editing by Seth Tupper. Audio this week came from recordings by South Dakota Searchlight and legislative live streams provided by South Dakota Public Broadcasting. South Dakota Searchlight is part of States Newsroom, the nation's largest nonprofit news organization. Until next time, I'm South Dakota Searchlight's Megan O'Brien with the Searchlight Report.